My name's Maria Madrid. I'm the Director of Latino Services with the Colorado Gerontological Society. Thank you for joining me today at this webinar so you can learn how to complete your medical durable power of attorney. Through this whole process, I will go ahead and turn off my camera so you have access to the full screen and see the information that I will provide for you. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available in our YouTube for you to review as many times as you would like. And I will follow up with an email with access to the recording and the slides. Feel free to use the chat and the Q&A to answer any questions as we go along. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn off my camera and let's go ahead and get started. So um, my objectives for you today is to leave today understanding how to complete the medical durable power of attorney form. Um, I want you to leave with knowing what information you need, best practices to consider and to follow. And once you complete your medical durable power of attorney, who you should give copies to. So before we begin with completing the actual form, let's talk about what is a medical durable power of attorney. A medical durable power of attorney is a legal document. It says who's going to speak on our behalf when we need medical care and we can't communicate our needs. The other thing is this is for everyone ages 18 and over who have decisional capacity. What is decisional capacity? This means you are able to provide informed consent or refuse medical treatment or the ability to make an informed healthcare benefit decision for yourself. Know that the information that I'm covering today is specific to Colorado. Um, and every state has their own rules and regulations around advance directives. So the concept in general can be the same for other states, but this is very specific to Colorado. So first, let's go ahead and begin with what information is needed. So before you complete your form, you have to do some things first. The first thing is deciding who you want your agent and alternates to be. Your agent is the person that is going to speak on your behalf if you're not able to communicate and need medical care. Your alternates are the individuals that could step in if the agent, for whatever reason, is not able to speak on your behalf. So think of an agent as your plan A and your alternates as your plan B and C. So, what are the requirements to be an agent or an alternate? Um, that person or persons needs to be 18 years old or older. They need to be willing to accept this responsibility. They need to be available for emergencies or if you need ongoing care. And most importantly, it's a person that you trust. It doesn't necessarily have to be a blood relative. It could be family, it could be friends, it could be your neighbor. It just has to be overall someone that you trust and that they know you, that you know that whatever the situation is, they will respect your preferences and not theirs. So those are the most important things when you're looking for an agent and alternate or alternates. So before you complete the form, these are some best practices, recommendations, and things you should have in hand before completing the actual form. So the first thing and the most important thing We want to make sure that whoever you're considering as your agent and alternates, please have some conversations with those folks. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to accept the responsibility. We do not want to create future barriers for ourselves. And what I mean with that is if you complete the medical durable power of attorney form, you never tell the individual that you have appointed them as your agent. Um, let's say then a medical crisis happens. Um, the emergency personnel at that hospital are calling your agent, and your agent says, I had no idea. um, I never accepted the responsibility. I don't feel comfortable speaking on this person's behalf. At that point, um, it's as if you didn't have a medical durable power of attorney in place. So we want to make sure that you have those conversations beforehand, so that agent and those alternates have the ability to respond whether or not they want to be your agent. Um, Note that not everybody's ready to be an agent or an alternate, so you might have to consider other people if they tell you no. But please have those conversations beforehand. Also, consider if you want to have your medical durable power of attorney notarized. Now, Colorado doesn't require for this form to be notarized in order to be legally binding with your signature and date. That's all you need for this form to be legally binding. The good thing about getting your form notarized is that, once again, every state has their own rules and regulations. We want to make sure that if you are going to travel and you do have a medical emergency or any other emergency that leaves you unable to speak on your behalf, that your form gets respected. One of those things is by getting it notarized. The other good thing about getting it notarized is that you have two witnesses that are 18 and over that are witnessing you sign this document. The notary needs to see you sign this document, and the notary doesn't necessarily have to be an expert on the form itself, but the notary is there to make sure that nobody's forcing you to complete this form, and that all in all, you are of sound mind and nobody's pressuring you. So it's just an extra layer of protection for yourself and validity to your form. But once again, it's completely um, optional, it's not required. The third best practice that I recommend is just gather all the information you need before you sit down and complete the form. The information that you need is the following, and this is apart from your own personal information, such as your name. Um, so you will need the agents and the alternates information. You will need their full name, their complete address, their full main phone number, a second phone number if available, or email. So when you have the conversations with those folks, that's a perfect time to make sure you gather that information and that you have the correct information to put in the form. So now that we know some of the things that we should be doing beforehand, we know what information we need, let's move into how to complete the form. And throughout the conversation about completing the form, I will make sure that I give you some other best practices and common mistakes to avoid. So in front of you, you should be able to see the medical durable power of attorney form in its entirety. It's a two-page form. And what we'll do next is go section by section, so you understand where your information goes, where your agent's information, if you're going to have alternates, where all that information goes in the form, So as you are getting ready to complete this form, you could always look back at this video and go section by section so you complete your form as accurately as possible. So let's start with section 1 of the form. This is where you um, say who you are and assign your agent and alternates. Now, understand that not everybody has multiple people in their life. Some individuals have one person, some individuals have many. Um, so know that it's not a requirement to have alternates, but you at least need an agent in order to be able to complete this form, because this form is to appoint someone that is going to speak on your behalf when you're not able to communicate and you need medical care. So throughout the whole tutorial, you will see different colors. So you will always be in blue. Your agent will always be in a turquoise, and alternates will always be in this lighter shade of blue. So that section 1, the first thing that you need to do is say who you are. So for this example, we'll use Jane Doe as the person that is getting her medical durable power of attorney completed today. So here you see where Jane Doe's name goes. So it's I, Jane Doe, the declarant hereby appoint. So here Jane Doe is saying who is going to be her agent. Her agent is going to be John Doe. We want to make sure that when we're completing the form, we have two options. If we have a computer and are able to use the computer and feel comfortable completing the document in the computer, you could go ahead and type in the information. The form that I will make available to you after this webinar, you will be able to go in there and it's a fillable PDF. If you want to print it out and handwrite it, you could definitely do that too. Just some main things about if you're handwriting the information in. Make sure that you use a pen. Never use a pencil. Why not a pencil? Because information can be erased. So that's why we want to use a pen. If you're going to use a pen, when you use a pen, make sure that it's either blue or black ink. And also make sure that you write in a way that it's legible and they could fully, whoever reads this document is able to fully read your name and all the other information. So let's go into John Doe's information. So where you see name of agent, this is where we have John Doe, who is going to be the agent. Then we have the best phone number to contact John Doe. And here you will see that it's 303-333-3482. Make sure that you include the full phone number, area code, and everything. Our world now is very different than how it used to be. Um, uh, years back where you knew exactly area code. Now we don't know. We have individuals that have the same phone number and have moved from another state. So we want to make sure we include the full phone number, area code, and the phone number itself. So that way there's no trying to figure out what area code this individual has. If the individual, your agent has another phone number, you have the ability to put a second phone number. And once again, same best practice, write down the whole phone number. Then we're going to enter the address. When we enter an address, it's the same thing. We want to make sure it's the full address where you have the unit number, you have the name of the street, you indicate if it's a street, if it's drive, you have the city, you have the state and the zip code. The same thing applies if we just, instead of putting the address as we have it in front of us, if we just put 1129 Pennsylvania Street, we don't know from where, right? So that's why we're going to put 1129 Pennsylvania Street, Denver, Colorado 80203. This is the society's contact information, and that's why I'm using it in this example. So make sure that the information is complete and legible. So let's go into, if you have alternates, how you would complete that. And it's also section 1, and you have the ability to put two agents. So it's completely up to you how you go ahead and name agent 1 and agent 2. When you're talking to your agents, that is part of the conversation that you should have. Because if John Doe is not available to speak for Jane Doe, then in this scenario, the next runner up would be Jim Doe. And only if Jim Doe is not able to speak for Jane, then Mary comes into play. And that's how we're assigning the different responsibilities. So your agent is always primary. If something happens to your agent where they're not able to speak on your behalf, they're in the same situation you're in, then you have agent, your alternate that steps in, and then your alternate number 2 that steps in case the agent and alternate number 1 is not able to. So it'll ask you name of alternate agent number 1. For Jane Doe, this is Jim Doe. Once again, his name is legible. We enter his full phone number. For Jim, we have an email for a second way to contact him. So we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to put his full email address because there's so many different providers that we never want to make it complicated for any of our agents or alternates to be contacted. So it's jimdoe@gmail.com. So we want to make sure that email address, just like the phone, just like the actual physical address, that that whole information is completed in its entirety. So we have Jim Doe's information. Jane has appointed Mary Doe as her alternate number 2, and we have 2 phone numbers for Mary, and we have the full phone number entered for the best contact number. We have the second phone number, and then we have the full address. So now that we know who Mary is, who she's appointing as her agent and her alternates, now we need to say when can that agent speak for Mary. So here is where you are able to initial only one, and you could either say immediately upon my signature, or you could say when my physician or other qualified medical professional has determined that I am unable to make my or express my own decisions, and for as long as I am unable to make or express my own decisions. So let's go more into what each means. If a medical crisis happens today, and you want your agent to speak for you immediately, then you would initial immediately upon my signature. If you have a medical crisis today and you first want to make sure that a medical professional determines that you're not able to communicate, then um, you want your agent to then be able to speak on your behalf, that's when you would go ahead and initial the second option. There's no right or wrong. It's completely up to you how you want this process to look. However, note that it is an emergency. You have no control over how much time goes um, between the time that you have that medical crisis and the time that um, medical professional is able to determine if you're able to communicate. So go ahead and consider when you want that agent to speak on your behalf. Just because it says immediately upon my signature, it doesn't mean that that person is going to speak for you starting as soon as you sign your name and date the document. It means that there's no lag time between that medical crisis and when your agent is contacted and their ability to be able to speak for you and advocate for you. So once again, you need to make that decision which one is the best option for you in initial one. So now let's go into section 3. This is where you have the ability to give any instructions to your agent. Um, Understand that this part can be very long or very short, or you can leave it blank. So you could say in here anything about your preferences regarding life sustaining procedures, any type of treatment, general care services, if there's any medical concerns or health concerns, diagnoses that you have, or if you have some religious preferences that you wish to be respected. This is also a place where you can note these things. There is a second advanced directive that you could use that goes into life sustaining procedures and end of life treatment. This is one of the future webinars that we will have, and I will go through, just like I am today, I will go through that form and talk you through the form in its entirety. Um, I recommend that you also attend that webinar, as it's another tool for you to be able to document your desires, your preferences when it comes to life sustaining procedures. So, a perfect example for this area would be for individuals that do not want blood transfusions. This is a perfect area where you would indicate that due to your religious beliefs, you do not want to have any type of blood transfusion. So this is where you would note it. So now that you've listed who you are, who your agent is, if you have alternates, um, when you want those powers to begin, and if you have any instructions to your agent, that is the majority of the form. If you are not going to get your form notarized, then you just need to sign and date your form. If you have decided that you're going to get your form notarized, make sure that you do not sign your form until you're in front of that notary. The notary is that unbiased witness that is there to certify that um, you are the person that you say you are, and that you signed this document, and that no one forced you to sign this document, and that you seem to be a sound mind when you completed the document. So if you don't want to get it notarized, it's completely optional. Know that your document is valid and it's legally binding at that point. But if you want to go ahead and get it notarized, we'll go into that section. So just make sure that when you date your document, you sign it and also put the full date. So in this case, I used February 20th, 2021. So we want to make sure that we put the full date on there. So on the second page of the form, you have the ability to have your agent and your alternates sign. This is not required. This is completely optional, but this opens up the conversation to you and to your agent and alternates to be able to further discuss what things look like so everybody knows who's doing what. So if you choose to complete this part of the form, this is what it would look like. So first you need to sign. You are the declarant in this form. So this is why we have Jane Doe's name in red where your name would go. Then we have the agent, John Doe. We have his signature. We have his printed name and the full date of when he signed. We have alternate number one as Jim Doe. We have his signature, his printed name, and full date when he signed. And the same for alternate number two, Mary Doe's signature, her printed name, and full date. So once again, this section is completely optional, but it does open the doors for you to follow up and continue engagement with both your agent and alternates. So now this is the last section of the form. This is where you would get your form witnessed and notarized. So the first thing is because you're the declarant, again, you have to say who you are. So Jane Doe is where your name would go on the form. Then in front of the notary, your witnesses would then sign. Your witnesses cannot be the same people that are your agent or your alternates. So this is why Jane Doe has Sam Smith and Sam Cook. So when they're witnessing, they're going to sign. They're going to go ahead and print their name and their full address is needed. So once again, it's the full address, the name, the unit number, the street, um, the city, the state, and the zip code. And we have witness number one as Sam Smith, and then we have witness number two as Sam Cook. We have Sam's signature, we have Sam's printed name and full address. And lastly, and you'll see in this green color, that is what the notary completes. So the notary is responsible for completing this form, so you do not have to complete that part. And basically the way that it's completed, it's based on where the location of where the form is signed. So in this case, it's the state of Colorado. We're using Denver County because that's the county that the society is in. The declarant is Jane Doe. We have the two witnesses, which are Sam Smith and Sam Cook. And then the notary also says when this took place. So it's February 20th, 2021. The notary will sign and the notary will document the date when their commission expires. So a notary gets their commission by the state and it expires every so often. So they need to document that on their notary seal when they do this. Even if their commission expires, your document is still valid. So please do not worry about that because I do get that question quite often. So know that your document will continue to be valid even if that notary's commission expires. Basically, as long as that commission is up to date when the form was completed and signed, you will be fine. So let me now go into you've completed your form, it's notarized, or you decided not to get it notarized, but it's completed, it's signed and dated. Now, who do we give copies to? This part is essential. Um, so in I want to say 2 years now, the state of Colorado decided that in past legislation that in the future we will have a registry where we are able to upload our advanced directives. This is not available at this point in time, so we want to make sure that we have the copies that we need and distributed to the individuals that need to have those copies. So in case of an emergency, those copies are there. So you need to give copies to your agent, your alternates, your doctor. Make sure you keep the original form yourself. Make sure that you have it in a place in your home where it's easily accessible if the original is needed. One of the things that I recommend is for you to have a copy on your refrigerator, on the back of your front door, or next to your bed. When 911 is called and that emergency medical team comes into your home, those are the typically the three areas where they look for that information. So make sure you have a copy there. Don't have the original there. Have a copy. If you're going to travel, just like you would carry your passport and your ID, you could carry a copy with you in your bag, whether it's a wallet or a purse. Um, and when we're talking about doctors, depending on your insurance and who you have as a doctor. Some um, organizations have the capability of downloading the document into your file. So anyone that provides care at your doctor's office or sister hospitals would have access to those documents. But that is not the case. In case of an emergency, we don't know what hospital or where we will find ourselves. So having that additional copy is huge when we're looking at making sure that those documents are available. There's been many times where individuals go through the trouble of completing the documents, having everything up to par, but they never tell anyone, or they have the documents um, locked in a safe box. Nobody knows this box exists. Nobody knows where the keys are or the combination. And if those documents are not available at the time of need, it's as if we don't have any. So this is why giving copies to your agent, your alternates, your doctor, um, carrying a copy with you, having a copy on your refrigerator, on the back of your main door, or next to your bed are huge. So that way the information is accessible at the time of need. So, we want your advanced directives, your medical durable power of attorney to be a living document. We don't ever want you to think of these documents as I completed them once and I am done. We want to make sure that just like we have annuals and physicals with our doctor, that we should look at this document the same way. Review it every year. If there's changes, then it's time to go ahead and start the process. If you review it and your preferences are still the same, you have reviewed it, you know that it's up to date, you don't need to take any additional steps. Other times to consider when to review your document is when there's a change in any medical condition you have, if there's a new diagnosis, if you get married or divorced, or if you change your mind about who your agent is or your alternates. A special note on divorce: if you have your spouse as your agent, um, that medical durable power of attorney will become void with that divorce. So if you want your ex-spouse to continue to be your agent, at that point you need to complete a new medical durable power of attorney. That is one of the rules and regulations that we have in the state. The idea behind that is if you are divorcing that individual, most likely you don't want them to advocate for you in case of a medical emergency. So understand that what we covered today is a very small part of your advanced care planning journey. Here at the Society, we see advanced care planning as looking at medical, financial, legal. So I hope that you're able to join me in future webinars because we will go into more medical, we'll go into the financial and the legal piece. So that way you understand how you could continue to do planning and complete the right documents that are for you and um, can go ahead and provide um, the support system that you need in case of an emergency um, and if you need anyone to advocate for you. So in this PowerPoint, I do have some resources for you. The Society has an advanced directives toolkit where you could download any of the forms that I've covered in previous webinars. In this webinar, you have access to the medical durable power of attorney. The information that I covered today, best practices are also there. If you're looking for other advanced directives, you could also look there. All the information we'll be covering is available on the Advanced Directives Toolkit and when you're looking for other forms on our website. And also on our YouTube channel, after every webinar, I'm making it available on there. So that way, if you need to see it once or need to see it every time you need to update your form, you have access to that. So now that we've gone through the whole form, we know who to give copies to, we know what information we need before completing the form, we know where we could get the form, we know all the things that we set in our objectives. Let's get into questions because I want to make sure I have enough time to answer your questions and you leave with your questions answered. Also note that um, if you want to complete your documents and um, you still have some questions after today, which is completely normal, all of us have different situations going on. So know that at the Society, you could get free assistance to complete your forms. Um, and we're there to help you to complete your forms. So let's start with those questions. Um, the first question reads, if you have an agent designated that you thought was going to be able to serve in this capacity, but when a crisis happens, they decline, is the alternate is the alternate become the agent at this time? So yes, and this is why it's so important to have alternates because for whatever reason, if your agent is not able to speak on your behalf, whether it's because they are in the same situation as you, they change their mind, whatever else, they go missing, your agent, your alternate agent number one is able to step in. And let's say the same thing happens with agent alternate number one, then you have your alternate number two. So if you have those three individuals to go ahead and agree to this, I would say please do have your plan A, B, and C. So that way there's basically a chain of command. If something happens to the agent, um, you have the others that could be backup. So I hope that answers your question. So let's go ahead and go to a second question. How does the form you're sharing compare to the five wishes? Wonderful question. Thank you so much because this is a frequent question that I get. So the five wishes is a marriage of the medical durable power of attorney and the living will. So it appoints who's going to speak on your behalf and what medical treatment you want at end of life. So that is another advanced directive. The five wishes um, is not as used as it was in previous times. The reason behind that is the document is very lengthy, so medical professionals in the advanced care planning community has moved into looking at forms that are one page, double-sided, very easy to read and understand, so there's no misinterpretations. And because the five wishes, you have a lot of areas for narrative, that leaves a lot of area for interpretation. So the medical durable power of attorney and the living will by themselves currently are being used more and more frequently than the five wishes. Also, in order to get the five wishes form, there is a fee associated with that. So uh, sometimes individuals are not able to cover that fee. So let's get into more questions. Is the same material to be presented on February 10th, or is it a continuation of the same subject? So for February 10th, I'm going to cover the same thing. Previous times that we've had the webinar series, this is one of those topics that people want to attend to, but because of different timing issues, whether people are working or whatever have you, they're not able to attend. So this time, we wanted to make sure we gave a more opportunity for folks to participate at different times. So yes, the February 10th will be what we're doing today. Let's see. Are electronic signatures valid, or are only pen and ink signatures accepted? So, um, right now, under the rules and regulations, there's um, nothing that indicates that a electronic signature is valid. So, best practices. Um, Please do sign with pen and ink. We don't want that to be a possible barrier. Um, so make sure that you do sign. Um, there are some notaries that can notarize your document with the e-notary, but you still need to be there face to face. So these documents still need to be signed with a pen. Let's see. The witnesses are not necessary though, correct? So if you're gonna get your document notarized, you need the two witnesses. If you decide not to get your document notarized, you do not need the witnesses. Um, so it's based on what you decide. So remember, notarization is optional. The only things that are a requirement for your document to be legally binding, you need to have your signature and date. So know that if you get it notarized, as part of the notarization process, you need those two witnesses, and they cannot be the individuals that you have listed as your agent or alternates. If your agent or the alternate changes their email, can I just change it on the form with a black pen? Um, the form is notarized. Um, I recommend that once you have your document notarized, do not write anything else on it. Why? Because then we don't know what the original document had and any other alternation. So please do not ever write on a document that you've already signed. At that point, you have two options. You could go ahead and attach um, a form that has the corrected agent's contact information. You could go ahead and date it, and you could go ahead and sign it and attach it, or you could complete a whole new form. Don't write on your notarized form, or even if you didn't get it notarized, um, don't write additional things on it. Let's see. Can you have more than one agent along with the two alternates? So yes, you can have more than one agent. If that is something that you want to do, the form that I presented to you today would not allow for that. So I would recommend that at that point, you seek legal counsel to get your medical durable power of attorney completed. So that way, they could indicate how those two primary agents, at that time, they would be co-agents, would be working. How would that look like as far as the decision making, especially if they don't agree? So that's why it's so important when you're choosing your agents that they're able to work in a team scenario and get along with each other. So that way they could find resolution and they're in agreement. So that would be something that an attorney would be able to assist you with that. So just note that this form, that it's already printed and it's fill in the blank, would not allow you to name two agents. Where can we source these materials download? So everyone in attendance will get a follow-up email from me, and I will give you all of the links, including a copy of um, a copy of the slides where everything has a link to it and you could click on it. The email will have the same. That way, you have the medical durable power of attorney form, access to the advanced directives toolkit, and also access to this recording. Do you need another form of HIPAA? Or is this the same form? So HIPAA is the law of the land at the federal level with our privacy. So the reason why we use a medical durable power of attorney is to give um, to appoint who's going to speak on our behalf. And so medical staff that are treating us know that we have given them permission to speak to our doctor and to make medical decisions about our medical care. So you would not need another a HIPAA release form. There are HIPAA release forms that you could use. I would check with your medical provider if they have additional HIPAA forms, but the medical durable power of attorney would allow the person that you assign as your agent to be able to speak to your doctors. The doctors would be able to speak to them in order for you to get the care that you need, the medical treatment that you need, um, because without that, then the advanced directive wouldn't be a good in itself. So know that the medical durable power of attorney does all of that. You don't need an additional HIPAA release form. All right, so those are all the questions in the Q&A. Let's go into the chat. So in the chat, there was someone that couldn't hear me. I am so sorry. Sharon, the form I will make sure to email to everyone after this webinar has concluded with a follow-up email with access to the recording and the slides. Um, The other thing that I will do, since I know that there's another question about needing another HIPAA form. I do have access to a general HIPAA form, but the medical durable power of attorney would suffice for um, medical staff that are treating you to be able to disclose any information to the agent, and the agent making decisions for your medical treatment. All right, let's see. Let me continue. So, um, will the PowerPoint be available in the forms? Yes, I will email those to everyone. Let's see. All right, so I have answered all the questions so far. Um, Let me go ahead and put in front of you my contact information. If you have any questions, if there's anything else that comes up as you are figuring out how you should do your advanced care planning, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you through this process. You can see my email in front of you. It's maria.madrid@senioranswers.org. Um, Also, our website, senioranswers.org, is available for you. That's where you will also find the advanced directives toolkit. But like I said, I will send all that information to you so you have it um, in one area versus all over the place. So so please don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out to us so we could help you through this process. Know that with COVID-19, there's no additional or new advanced directives. The forms that we've had prior to COVID-19 are the same forms that we should be using, since those are the forms that are set by our rules and regulations for the state of Colorado. The medical durable power of attorney is one of the most important forms that you could have as part of your um, as part of your advance directives, because you are saying who's going to speak on your behalf. So with that, you have someone that will be able to advocate for you and help you through that process. Um, so once again, thank you. At this time, I will go ahead and end this webinar. I will go ahead and email everyone. Thank you so much, and I look forward to virtually connecting with you in the future webinars that are part of this